And I know that what our viewers would like to know is what's going on in the world, and we talked in advance about some topics that we were going to cover.
Yes.
Let's see, who should we start with? Well, let's start out with Matt Gaetz. I always feel like I want to take a shower after I read
You know
that
what?
guy.
Speaking of dark, that's a great segue. Like, that's the energy we don't want to mess with, but we are. We're going to do that.
Yes. Yes, we are. Look at little Matty Gaetz.
All right.
Oh, the GOP scapegoat.
Oh, my goodness.
Got caught with his hand in the big old cookie jar, and they just left him there to rot.
Even Donald Trump wouldn't take his calls.
I know.
Like, are you serious?
Yeah,
Wow.
that's pretty bad.
That is pretty bad when the king won't take your calls.
Matt Gaetz, and I'm using my medieval Scapini deck. It's my oldest deck. It's been my friend for 30 years.
And I'm going to be using the Golden Tarot today.
Okay, and I'm just going to put out 3 cards for Mr. Gaetz. Pardon? Oh, I have to hold them up. Okay, so the first card I get for him is the Knight of Rods, the Knight of Wands. And since this is a sexual scandal, I actually see something very phallic about it. Basically, like, this is really putting a damper on his life in a lot of ways, but it's taking the energy out of him. It's taking the motivation. It's taking the drive. He's basically stuck, like wands are fire, so they move fast. This guy is basically stuck and mired in where he's at right now. Can't redirect. He can't get anything done. He can't discuss anything else. He can't deal with anything else in his life because this is just such a pernicious part of it, as it should be. 4-year-old sleeping with a 17-year-old, honestly. I get the 8 of Swords reversed, and I really think he thinks that he might be able to get out of this, that he might be able to wait it out and get beyond it, because he's thinking that there's going to be a time when this releases. I don't think so. Oh no, it gets worse. We have the 5 of Cups reversed, and that's like the most positive thing I could say. But when I see the 5 of Cups, a lot of times it's about a partial loss, and the idea is that you need to focus in on what you still have.
Right.
But like this told me, he doesn't really have much left.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see him dying or anything like that, but I definitely see him as a guy without a future.
Right.
I hope he's got a good savings account, because he's going to have a real hard time finding any kind of a job.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I got 2 things that are very similar to that outcome, but you had got him as that Knight of Wands reverse, and I'm getting him with the King of Cups reverse. For me, this is interesting, because sometimes this can be my embezzler card, someone who's stealing money from behind the scenes. And I also get this as someone who's a big manipulator. And I think the emotional aspect of this card, he's definitely trying to manipulate any possible situation. It's interesting, though, that I'm feeling money around that. So there might have been money associated with this girl. I have a sense that this isn't just about I dated a 17-year-old girl and took her over state lines. I think this is going much deeper. I think there's some big money exchanged or stolen. This could be from like campaign funds, for example, or something to that effect that was taken illegally. And I think that's what I'm feeling with that card. I think that might be coming out. There's a lot of emotion around this with the Ace of Cups reverse on his part. And I do see him broke and alone with the 5 of Pence here. And I asked for like an ultimate outcome, and I did get the Nine of Wands reverse, which can be work-related difficulties to me. Now, this could maybe potentially be an imprisonment card. I had a few that are like potential, but the fact that I have him reversed, every time I read, I'm not seeing him in prison yet, which is just really interesting. I'm not sure how he's going to get out of it, or I'm not really sure why I never get imprisonment. But what I do get is he definitely will have to resign. That he's not going to be a congressman anymore, for sure. And he's definitely going to have problems with his career. So I at least get that part. So
Yeah, well,
not good for him.
it seems like karma's just taking everything that matters away from him.
Right.
Which makes sense because he took everything that matters away from some young girls.
Exactly.
You know, and even though this girl might not be a really good witness, because I know I did a reading for him before, and I think I did it last week, where I saw that this girl right here is kind of like level 1, and there's going to be another witness to someone that's far more mature, far more credible.
Right. And I think that's what I'm picking up as well, that this goes deep, way deeper than that. And I think that's where the money is exchanged. I think that there are more girls. I think there are more people in Congress and or the Senate that might be involved. Let's just call them political people, because I think it could be, you know, a broad spectrum of people. Maybe that's why I'm not seeing him in prison yet. It's very possible that he could be someone that they use to get a bigger fish type of thing, or he cuts a deal that way. But for sure, he's done, though.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
done. Absolutely.
You know, would you like to maybe look at, since we're on the topic of the GOP and their sliminess, would you like to maybe look at Mitch McConnell or the future of the GOP itself?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to do Mitch first, and then we'll do GOP?
Okay, let's do Mitch.
Kind of what's coming up for Mitch.
What's coming up for Mitch?
What's coming up for Mitch?
Even before I throw the cards, all I see is a picture of his wife. I think there's something coming up with his wife that kind of steers his direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm definitely getting that.
So the first thing I get for him is the Hermit. You know, which is strangely enough a good card, even though it is one of being alone. I think that he might be kind of in a mea culpa situation. You know, like in the short-term future, you might find him becoming a little bit more willing to negotiate, a little bit wiser, you know, showing some leadership. Well, he's got to show something. But the ill aspect is the Wheel of Fortune. So even though the Wheel of Fortune is right side up, it's in the bad position. It's in the position of severity. So this tells me that try as he might, it doesn't look like the Wheel of Fortune is turning in his favor. And the road ahead, you've got the Seven of Pentacles reversed. So in the short term, he is going to try and look wise and maybe even show some of the qualities that you would expect from a senior leader, right? But ultimately, he's got some money problems coming up.
Yeah.
And some of the money solutions he's been waiting for are not going to come through. So he's got some fizzling out here. He may be losing donors. Donors.
Right.
What do you see?
The first thing I had gotten, and I think I'm getting layers of meaning here, because I'm getting there's a judgment coming up. And even though the Hierophant is a government card and could be about doing what's morally right, I'm feeling marriage with this. Like there's a judgment with his marriage, and maybe something that his wife had done. And I'm getting a couple things off this card, the Six of Swords reverse. she's transportation secretary. This could have to do with transportation being stuck, or there's something here that's stuck, and that's why there's a judgment. But I'm also getting illness here with this card. So I feel like there's a couple of things coming up. I think you've got stuff coming out with his wife, and it's interesting that the Hierophant is in my timing here, and it's in the sign of Taurus, so that could even be coming up very soon, as far as news about that. The illness thing, I think, is what's going to make him not move forward. In fact, the Eight of Wands is moving forward here. There's a lot of interference here with these issues. I think the illness is going to get him. He's not moving to success with this Six of Wands reversed. I think he's on his way out. I think his excuse is going to be illness. But the fact that I'm picking up two different things, like you have the wife and the illness, I think this is a double-edged sword here. He might say it's because he's sick, he's stepping down, but this is weighing heavily on him, what's coming out about his wife. And I think you're right. Money is it's always about money with Mitch, right?
Yeah.
So,
money and power and a little bit of bourbon.
Mitch is done. Mitch is done. Yeah.
So let's see what we see with the grand old party.
Ah, yes. The future of the GOP.
And I'm going to let you go first.
Oh, okay. Let me just lay out my cards on the GOP and see what we get here. Wow, I'm literally getting Mitch McConnell's spread even after shuffling a little bit. All right, this is what I'm getting. Here is in the past. I think with the Hierophant in the past, the GOP really, they said they stood for what's morally right, conservative family values. I just get, staying in the box, kind of living your life with this card, not getting into nonconformity. We're going to conform and have those conservative values. But I am getting that Six of Swords reverse. Now, with this context, I just get a sense that they have nothing but difficulties now, that they are really stuck. They've painted themselves in a corner, is what I'm feeling. So they started here, but they have gone so off the path in trying to satisfy the desires of what I would consider extremists, that they've painted themselves in a corner. So they don't even know how they're going to move on to better shores at this particular time. But there's a judgment or a new day coming. So I do feel like the Biden administration is just moving forward. Things are starting to change. People are just not all about this anymore. They just don't trust it. And I know this is crazy, but I actually get at the end that they're going to reinvent themselves. This might not be right away because they have some stuff to go through, but I think they are going to embrace the new way. I think they're not going to have a choice. Does that make sense? I think it's the only way to get unstuck is to move forward without the extremists. I'm actually getting a positive read that the GOP is going to reinvent itself. Might take some time, but I didn't expect that because it's so messed up over there. But I think based on this reading, they are going to do that.
I'm glad that you read first, because what I got for the GOP is kind of like after that, because this follows up right in the middle. As far as the base card here, I get the Emperor, and the Emperor is an authority figure. But the thing with the Emperor is that he's hard on the outside. He's got that armor, but he's got a warm heart that beats within it. Mm-hmm. So it's all that velvet, the soft on the inside, hard on the outside. And when you say returning to their roots, I see that there. Because basically, there are so many people who vote Republican just because they believe in conservative values.
Right.
and they're voting it based on what it used to be.
Right.
So I think that they will find their way back.
Right.
You know, when you're looking at an emperor, you're not looking at it, you know, the nutcase Tea Party QAnon kind of people.
Right.
You know, so I think that they are going to start. I think that the Republican Party, you're right, it is a process. Is the positive aspect, you have the hanged man reversed, which tells me that, you know, some of the sacrifices they've made will pay off, some won't, but they'll be able to let go of what doesn't work, namely the conspiracy theorists, and that they need to bring back the Lincoln Project guys.
Right. Right.
And once they let go of all this craziness, you will find some of the guys, not just the Lincoln Project guys like Conway and Schmidt, but you'll also find guys like Morning Joe coming back into the fold of the Republican Party. So I think you're right. They will reinvent themselves, but they've got a long way to go. In the area of severity, you've got the magician, and you know the magician's the one who's got all the tools in it, and it's just that he's got to put them together and use them in the right way, and they haven't been doing that.
Right.
But the idea that this guy shows up at all tells me that the potential is there. You know, it might take them another couple of election cycles to do this, but I think you're right. They will find their way back.
And I was thinking, because when I pulled that judgment card, I mean, the judgment is a reckoning. So that's not an easy process. If I'm going to go through that judgment to get to the other side, I mean, if we went with the Christian overtones of that card, it's like the wicked will be punished, you know, the good will move on. There is a judgment made in this party. Now, who's going to make maybe it's the people who make that judgment. Maybe it's the courts. Maybe it's a combination. But they have to weed out what's not working. And I always find the judgment card is out of time for me. So it could take as long as it takes. And you're right. I think it's going to take a number of election cycles. I've gotten that in the past, that this is not an easy fix, but they may get there.
Yeah, well, you know, it's like doing the bad thing has rewarded them for so long. It's just been this slippery slope. They've gone down farther and farther and farther.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And now they're losing the corporation. So that's their money in the bank.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so what do we want to look at next?
All right, let's see. I had written down some questions too. And I mean, while we're sort of on American politics right now, and we're thinking about the GOP, you had kind of asked about the insurrection, or what's going to happen in the aftermath of the insurrection. And I just have to say, as an American, that day was hard for me. I mean, next to say 9/11, that was just psychologically a difficult day, because I was literally seeing my country. I had grown up believing we were a strong democracy, and, you know, we had checks and balances and all the stuff they teach you in school so that these things can't happen. And I'm like, I'm literally watching a potential execution of people who are working for us on TV. Like, that scared the heck out of me. Luckily, everybody was safe, but it was terrifying.
But it was your luck. You're right. It was luck. It's amazing that they weren't able to, you know, kill the people that they were meaning to kill.
Right. That was for sure their intention. We've heard this and we've seen it. We can hear it on the tape. All I can say is maybe we were divinely protected that day.
Oh yeah, because the Capitol Police sure didn't have backup.
Right.
And it's just like the more it comes out and the more videos we see, the worse it gets.
Right.
And this thing that scares me is that I'm just not seeing enough indignation about it. I'm not just not seeing enough urgency as far as the acting on it.
Right.
You know, it's like it feels like there's still some of the forces in play that have been sweeping some of the stuff under the rug.
Right. And I think that's maybe what we need to look at. because to me, this is one of the worst sins you could commit against your own country. They were trying to take over the government. This was a coup, and you can't call it anything else. And the people who orchestrated that were traitors to their country. I don't know how else to say that. So the question is, I think what is going to happen here in the aftermath of this insurrection? And will the people who were responsible, will they be held accountable? Instead of, as you would say, being swept under the rug.
That's a big one. So I'm going to put down a few more cards on that, because
it is. It's a layered question.
Yes. And since I answered the first two, you get to go first on the next one too. Mine are shuffled and ready to go.
Okay, let's take a look here. I am just laying out kind of two separate questions. And the first is, will they be held accountable? And I almost feel like maybe not so much. And I know, I'm like, am I really seeing this? All right, the first thing is we have the Three of Swords. And I think this is just the pain and hurt that the people who really do care feel about this situation. There's a lot of loss here. And the Star card is reversed. Now, this is my America card, so I do feel like the fact that it's reversed, this hurt and pain is still there. It's a double-edged sword. See, there's hurt and pain about this country that started the insurrection. So I'm feeling that the people who are so-called Trump supporters, and I'm not talking about the radicals who wanted to murder and so forth, but there were people there who really thought they were just supporting their president and standing up for what they believed in. We talked about conservative values, or the fact that they've had a lot of pain and suffering, especially economically, that kind of turned them to that segment of the party. Like, I feel them here. So there's hurt there. And then there's hurt as far as what we would call the more liberal areas of the country, just to see that on TV. And I do get that they're repairing the situation. Now, this can be a difficult card, even when it's reversed. But I get them going back and looking at what happened. I do get investigations. I do feel like there may be some people held accountable. But the High Priestess is at the end, which is really interesting to me, because I get the sense with the High Priestess that they want to do this in a way that keeps us in balance, if this makes sense. So I'm not, although there might be some individuals held accountable, I'm not getting like, okay, you're all going to jail, or there just seems to be more balance here. Like, we don't want to revisit this too much. We don't want to hang our hats on the negative. We want to move on in some way. There's knowledge, but it seems to be tempered for me with that card. So I want to say yes, accountable, but more about healing is what I'm getting here. Healing this hurt, as opposed to just that blatant revenge or accountability. Did you want to comment on that segment of the question before I move on to what's coming up, or do you want me to just keep going?
Oh, just keep going.
Okay.
It's so making sense.
Oh, okay. Because when I'm getting here, I was like, well, what's the aftermath of the insurrection going to be for the United States? And the first two cards, I definitely get messages, knowledge, people coming forward. I guess this is and the good news is there are going to be people who are moving forward with information, with knowledge, and that's a positive thing. And for me, the Seven of Swords, this is like the Thief in the Night card, but I have it reversed. For me, that's often truth and honesty. So we are going to get a story of what really happened. So I guess the people who are in the shadows are going to be brought forward, at least some of them. Now, here's where I get the Death card is reversed. I'm not getting a full transformation here. You know, I often get things behind the surface with the death card reverse. There's still shadows of darkness, shadows of corruption. Maybe we get some of it is brought out, some of the story, but I feel like with this card, just like what I got before, like something isn't brought to account, not fully, if that makes sense. There are still shadows of darkness and corruptions that are not brought out. So I guess this is good news, bad news. I'm glad you asked this question or that it came up because I haven't really read on this before. So go ahead.
So when you were halfway through, I threw a couple cards out, just being anxious the way I am.
Yeah.
But the two that I threw out, very positive ones, the King of Pentacles and the Sun. And this was the cards that came out about time you put down the High Priestess.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And, you know, I think that, like what you said about, you know, okay, let me put it a different way. When I see the King of Pentacles and the Sun, I do see the United States moving beyond this, and you know, the idea of what Reagan called the shining city on the hill. You know,
on the hill.
The Americans always see them as themselves as being, you know, the ones that lead the world.
Right.
You know, and you know, front of the line for everything, which hasn't been the case in the past few years.
Right.
But it looks like we do enough healing to get ourselves back to that point where we feel like we're in charge. Mm-hmm. You know, it's kind of like when kids clean their room and they just do they just do what you can see, and they don't clean under the chest of drawers or the beds or clean out the drawers. Mm-hmm. Or the closet. So the mess is still there. You just don't see it when you first walk in the room. And I think that's basically what I see as the aftermath of yours, you know, that they're going to clean up some of it, but not all of it. I'm going to see what my cards have to say.
All right. Perfect.
But I'm pretty sure they're going to agree with what you had to say. And I did say that I was going to put down a few, so that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, the first two cards I get as a baseline are the Five of Cups and the Magician. So the Five of Cups does talk about a loss. Mm-hmm. You know, so right now we're feeling, I think that the whole country is feeling insecure. Yeah. I could see why this needs to be taken care of fast and wound up in a bow. Right. You know, because we can't have everybody feeling insecure while we're making all these big changes, right? Right. So, yeah, the next two cards I get are the Six of Coins reversed and the Queen of Coins. Positive. So it is about money. Mm-hmm. It always boils down to about money. Always. Yeah. And it's kind of like what they did because of the money and because of the support that they get and all the money, you know, money's just pouring in. But then the Six of Coins reverse, that tells me that, you know, that there's kind of a, for lack of a better way to put it, like when the big companies donate to the Republican Party, right? You know, it's kind of like charity. Mm-hmm. I mean, it used to be, I'm going to give you money and you're going to do a favor. Now it's, I'm going to give you money and you're just going to do whatever it is you do. Just make sure we keep the status quo. Right. This has gotten the corporate guys, you know, a little disinterested. I think that you'll still see people like the Koch brothers and the Mercers pouring money into the Republican Party, but you know, some of your bigger outfits, you know, your IBMs, your Googles, your Microsofts, your Boeings, all these big companies, you're going to find them giving a lot less money to the Republicans. So this has choked them off financially. Right. Which is kind of a good thing. Yes. Let me just throw two more cards and move on to the next, because I'm spending too much time on this. Right, right, right. And then the last words, as far as the final words my cards give, is the Hermit and the Four of Swords. So the Hermit, is about that idea of self-reflection and knowledge and enlightenment. So we're going to get enough knowledge that people are satisfied.
Right.
But you're right with that Four of Swords. That's truth, but it's never complete recovery there.
Right.
It's just, let's make it feel good enough for now. So unfortunately, that's exactly what I see. I think the way I feel about it is maybe they think that it's better that some things are left unsaid or undug into, just because the American people wouldn't like to see just how close they came to losing their government that day.
Right. And that's what hurts me from this reading, because, I mean, obviously that's what the cards are saying, and I get it on some level. But I personally feel they need to know how close they came on that day. Everyone needs to feel it in their bones, because if you're trying to be in denial about that, I feel like you're setting a stage for something like this to happen again.
History will repeat itself.
Exactly. We need to know the truth, and you need to have a reckoning with that as an American. You are part of this. If this is really a democracy, you have to be a participant, and you have to really understand how you have to fight for that to kind of keep what we have. And I think you're right in that they want to gloss it over. That's kind of what I had gotten from the reading as well.
Yeah, which is too bad, because that I could think of a couple of people that should go to jail for life for that.
Oh, absolutely. For entertainment purposes only.
Yes, for entertainment purposes only. Just telling what we see as human beings.
That's right.
That's right.